I have the fabulous Rachel Luna on the show. I couldn't be more stoked to have this conversation with her today. Rachel, how are you doing?
I am wonderful, Karolina. How are you? Wait, do I say it that way, Karolina?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm Polish, so that's my parents would roll the R like that, and I call it Karolina in the Americanized version, but
Okay. I'm Puerto Rican, so we're gonna give you your little R roll there. I'm excited to
exactly.
be here.
Amazing. Rachel, can you get my audience up to speed real quick? Can you tell us really quickly about who you are, what you do? I know you have a fabulous book we'll talk about in just a moment as well.
Yes, I always feel like that's such a loaded question. But the cliff notes, who I am, what I do. I am Rachel Luna, certified master neuroscience coach. I also train coaches in neuroscience coaching so that they can help their clients get predictable transformational results. I am the author of the book Permission to Offend: The Compassionate Guide for Living Unfiltered and Unafraid, and I'm also the host of the podcast Permission to Offend. Well, really, those are the things that I do. Who I am marvelous. I am wonderful. I am fearfully made in the image of God. I am the image of love, and I am a walking miracle.
Oh my gosh. So beautiful. And I can't wait to kind of dive into your story of how you've arrived at such deep self love and just deep knowing of your beautiful gifts that you have to offer the world. So your book stood out to me. I think it was recommended by Andrea Crowder when I first saw it. And the title was just like, I need to get my hands on that book, Permission to Offend. I think especially as women, we hold ourselves so small and maybe lack vision sometimes because of the reality around us that we don't think that we can go after our bigger dreams. So I open your book, I get to, the very first chapter, and it starts with a, incredibly horrific, traumatic story and experience that you went through under the influence. And I'll let the listeners get your book and read about that there. But I'm just curious, like, what role did alcohol play in your life before? And obviously, you started off with your story kind of sharing that. So I'm just curious what that looked like for you.
Well, both of my parents were addicted to alcohol. My father more so than my mother, but she definitely loved her SoCo. And so addiction was a big part of my life. And then in my early 20s, I had a real problem with alcohol. Um, to me, when I think about alcohol, it's so interesting because even before that opening story that you read in the book, and we won't share it, we'll save it for the readers. It's in the introduction, by the way, so don't skip the intro. Even before that moment, I said, nothing good ever happens when I drink. And I knew this to be true, yet somehow I kept finding myself turning to alcohol because it was such a great numbing agent for me. It was such a great way for me to escape from my reality. It was really, if I think back to even my college days, I don't remember much about college because I was drunk most of the time, but I do remember like doing keg stands and going to parties and getting, blackout drunk. But in those moments, at that point in my life, in that season, that was the only way that I felt comfortable in my skin. That was the only way where I almost had an excuse to be myself, because if people didn't like me, then I could blame it on the alcohol. I'd be like, oh, that's, when you get drunk, that's not really who I am. I was always too much. People always tell me you talk too much, you're too loud, your feet are too big, your glasses are too big. A dance teacher, your breasts are getting too big. I was always too much, but I never felt enough. And alcohol really helped me escape from that dissonance.
Yeah. And I think that's just so relatable. Like, not only are we like then in this environment where we're conditioned to drink, it's like this rite of passage, you get to do the keg stand and all this stuff, but we're also so insecure little adult children basically at that point, and really haven't developed ourselves in that way. And so tell me, like, when did you decide to quit drinking and how long have you been alcohol free since?
Hmm. I can't tell you exactly when I decided to quit alcohol because I stopped drinking at several different moments in my life. The first time I decided to quit was before that opening story in the book. I was in college and I had this blackout drunk night. And I woke up on the bathroom floor in my apartment, covered just in a pool of vomit. Sorry for the listeners, graphic alert. And I thought, oh no, I got to clean this up before my roommates wake up. And with my hands, I began scooping my throw up. I don't know why that was the first instinct, not get a bucket and a mop or nothing. No, like, and as I'm scooping it up, I remember thinking like, oh no, oh no, there's there's got to be more to life than this. I'm better than this. My mother raised me better than this. And so that day, after I kind of woke up and I, properly cleaned the bathroom, I noticed that I was shaking. And I was like, uh-oh, I have the shakes. And I was like, what do I do? You know what? Let me just have a shot of Malibu. I took a shot of Malibu and the shakes went away. And when the shakes went away, I was like, oh, I think I have a problem. I ended up going to a guidance counselor. I was failing out of school. And I went to her. I said, I have a problem. I need help. And that was my first foray into AA. And I was sober after that for probably about 3 years. And then I went out with that girlfriend that you read about in the book. I broke my sobriety because I thought that I could trust her. I thought that I was safe. And it's just so interesting because, I wish I had discernment then. I have very good discernment now, but back then I was so naive. I always wanted to see the good in people, and there are still good people. So I'm not trying to be a fear mongerer or tell you not to trust anybody, but definitely increase your discernment and your ability to have spiritual discernment is what I call it. So after that, I became sober again. And that was in 2004, 2005, somewhere around that time. And then I would say like a good 10 years passed and I didn't drink. And I remember by this point, I'm married, I have children. And what do all the women do that are married with children at home? I'm not going to say all, but I'm a former Marine. Now I live in this military installation. There's a lot of drinking that goes on in a military installation. So it was always like, let's have wine on Wednesdays or Fridays or family dinners with other, close friend families. So I found myself like having an occasional glass of wine there. But I realized I only drank with two friends, and it was only like one or two glasses. I was pretty controlled. No, and I'm sorry for the long story, but I want to give the backstory because I think sometimes people think that sobriety is you make a decision one time and then you're done and then you fall off the wagon and your whole life goes to hell. And that was not my experience. I got off the sobriety wagon, but my life did not go to hell, but it didn't get better either. And I remember this one time we were at another duty station and I had stopped drinking again. And this whole group, they just kept pressuring me and pressuring me to drink. And I was like, I don't want to drink. I don't like it. I don't like how I feel. I don't like that I have no control. I'm going to get emotional. Sorry about that. And my husband was like, it's okay. Just drink this one time. And I remember drinking and hating the experience so much that right then and there, I decided I'm never going to drink again. And I didn't drink for many more years after that. And then a couple of years ago, I decided I don't want to be an alcoholic. I don't want to be known as an alcoholic. I don't want that to be my identity. So I'm not an alcoholic. I'm giving up my sobriety and I'm going to be sober-ish. And soberish means if I feel like having a glass of wine, I'm going to have the glass of wine because I control it. It does not control me. I am not going to bow down to this disease. I'm not going to bow down to this addiction. I am made better. I am made in the image of God, who is strong and almighty and powerful. And Jesus drank wine. I started making all these justifications, right? That's what we do. And I made rules for when I would drink. I would drink if I felt called to, if I felt like I wanted to, for the flavor, not for the outcome. And I would not drink if I had any heightened state of emotion. So if I was overly happy and excited, I wouldn't drink because that would lead to binge drinking. Or if I was depressed and struggling, I wouldn't drink because I knew that that would take me down a downward spiral. And I stayed sober-ish for many years after that. But it's interesting because once I made that decision, I never really drank after that. I drank the last drink that I remember actually having was the day that one of my brothers died. I was in the airport. I was on my way to go see him. And I wasn't sad. I wasn't happy, but I knew that I just wanted to show myself how strong I was. Isn't that crazy? That I had to have a glass of alcohol to prove to myself that I was strong enough to not give in to alcohol. And I had half of a glass of wine with my charcuterie. And then I got on the plane, and as I landed, I found out that he had passed away. And that was the last time. And I think that was 5, 6 years ago. So I've been maybe sober 6 years. I also was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer in 2019. And because I chose not difficult, although it was, I chose a different healing modality. I just don't drink at all. I have no desire to. I don't need to prove to anybody, soberish, not sober. I'm 100% sober. I love that choice. I love that decision. And quite frankly, I'm actually turned off when people are like, let's go out for drinks. I'm like, let's not and say we did. That doesn't even sound like fun to me.
Yeah. That's an amazing story. And I love how you're able to like walk us through all the phases because it just goes to show too, like all of the different belief systems that you had to be working through. Like, I know that was a really big one for me that like I had, my drinking was something I did on the weekend. So I really didn't identify, yes, I overdrank, but I didn't identify it like rock bottom or anything. And so the idea of quitting for me was like, well, I'm not going to be labeled an alcoholic. That's ridiculous. I don't want to take on that label. So it's almost like we drink to try to prove that we're not this negative story, which is just kind of crazy when you think about it. Cause it's like when you really get to that level of discernment where you really get to like get into the nuance and the depths of your relationship with alcohol and you recognize how much better you feel without it or how much happier you are, or just how much more present or in control you are. It's like, why do we have to prove that to society or someone else, some other kind of expectation, which is why I just love that like your story and so much that's going on in this alcohol free space is just proving to all of us that like we don't need any kind of story to like do what is aligned with our values in that moment. You know what I mean? And I love that you've been able to like see that and shift. And it just makes it such special story too. Cause like you said, it's not just like this one and done kind of a decision, if anything like that. And so it feels like the last 2 decades, like you've been sober-ish, right? And like for the most part, alcohol free in so many different ways. Do you think you would have been able to achieve like half of what you achieved if alcohol was a more regular presence in your life? And I'm speaking to a woman who's like a best-selling author on TV shows, just so the audience knows.
Yeah, okay, that's right. I am a best-selling author. I have been on the Today Show and featured in Forbes. But no, girl, there's no way. People don't believe this about me. I am a high performer. However, I know that I'm a high performer because I have evidence of it in my life, but I would not categorize myself as such. This is how other people tell me they see me. I'm actually quite lazy and I like to relax, and I cannot even imagine waking up. After you drink, the way that you wake up in the morning is so even if you don't drink to get drunk, you wake up really sluggish and your mouth is all like dry and I can't even imagine waking up like that in the mornings anymore and just feeling that heaviness. I would make me not want to do anything. I already don't want to do anything most days, honestly. The only thing that keeps me showing up is that I'm committed to my mission and I'm passionate about helping heal generations. But no, no. Mm-mm.
Well, it's my special theory that literally the universe and God and or God taps us on the shoulder and really gives us this moment of reevaluation and this intuition to really ditch alcohol because we are meant for such great things. Because it's like paving the way, like you are literally divinely blessed to live out this beautiful purpose and help people and live your true impact into the world. And we don't have time for alcohol in that in that beautiful purpose.
Interesting that you talked about that divine because so I'm a Christian. I'm God girls, where are you at? And one of the things that I have learned is that if you want to have a really deep connection with God, you have to be clear. You have to be super clear. Your body has to be free of toxins and inflammation. And it's almost like the more pure your body is, the more discerning you can be, the more you can hear the voice of God, the more you can get those divine nudges. Though I call them soft whispers and gentle nudges, right? The more I can hear when I am free and clear. But if I, and listen, I don't drink alcohol and I really don't eat refined sugar or anything like that. But every now and again, I'll go and have sushi or I'll have something that adds a little bit of inflammation to my body. And the next day there's like that sluggish feeling. It's not that I don't hear God, but I don't feel that Holy Spirit divine connection because there's interference. There's like static there. So for those of you that are stuck in indecision and you're like, God, just give me a sign, sober up, go do a fast. Do a fast and watch how God will start talking to you. Get rid of the refined sugar and start eating a more organic diet and watch the clarity that comes through with you know making your body a temple. In fact, look, I'm not to make this into like a Bible study verse, but can I just, there's one last thing, there's one little thing, which I can't promise we'll get off the God subject, but this is so good. Okay, look, there's this one Bible verse that says, do you not know that your body is a temple, right? Now, most people say your body is a temple of God, but actually that is not what the Bible says. The Bible says your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Think about this. The whole, like, that's that your, some of you call it your intuition, some of you call it your gut, but that is where the spirit resides in your body, this holy temple. When we go into places of worship, do we expect to see a place of worship covered with gunk and grime and fog and smoke? No. We expect to go into a place of worship where it is peaceful and serene and clean and just inviting. That's our body. That's our body. Okay, that's it. That's it. I'm done. I'm done.
Well, I totally agree. And the ability to get these divine downloads and just intuitive nudges have just magnified. So, I mean, I used to literally work in a cubicle when I was drinking. Like I got nothing. I got no life inspiration back then, quietly maybe, but I was just too stuck in the fog to really notice, and then it just all came. And obviously faith is something that's so, important to you and just so infused into what you do. And do you feel like the messages you've gotten and the nudges you've gotten have really directed like your vision and your mission in this world? And how can someone who's like not hearing it, like, or maybe is a little more confused, like, what is it? What is my like work to do? What is my purpose here? What is my mission? Like, how can they hear it more? Other than obviously clear the fog, which we know.
Okay, let me answer the first question. Surprisingly, no, it wasn't my faith that has kept me going on this vision. If you would have, when I started this business 13 years ago, I've always had a relationship with God, but it wasn't like a partnership. It wasn't like, okay, God, we're gonna do this. You call the shots. You tell me what to do. No, it was more just a knowing. It was a feeling that I had that I was meant to do something that I didn't even really have evidence existed yet. Because remember, when I first started my online business, it was new. We didn't have Instagram, Facebook was not Facebook wasn't even open to the general public. You had to still be in college and have a college email address to use the Facebook. It was still called the Facebook. Okay, this is how long ago that was. And I didn't have that. I didn't have a ID anymore. So it was more so just this knowing that I'm supposed to do something that is in service of other people, that is in service of helping other people take action and get results. And I am a proponent, huge proponent for predictable results. How can we trust that what we're going to do is actually going to get the result? And how do we trust that? Now, over the years, as I've failed my way forward, you have to have faith to keep going when things don't work. And I'm not sure if most of your listeners are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, or you're still, in the cubicle, but you want to break free. Listen, in order to be able to take those steps, you have to have faith. Whatever faith looks like for you, figure it out, right? So your next question was, how do we hear the voice? How do we hear from God? How do we know we're on the right path? So one of the things I talk about in my book, Permission to Offend, is to get rooted in your identity. Figure out, what do you believe and what do you value and why? Are your beliefs your own, or are they beliefs that were imposed upon you by your teachers, your caregivers, your parents, your whoever? And for me, my faith was ingrained in me. I was programmed to love God, right? But I had to have my own reconciliation. And it's scary. I'll be honest with you. It is scary when you start questioning your beliefs and start to make those decisions for yourself. But this is the beginning of full knowing and trusting that, what you desire is right for you. Now, how did I do that? I studied. I began to read. For me, I can only speak for myself, Karolina. So I'm going to tell you how I do it, and then I'll open it up for people who have a different faith practice of how they might be able to do it. Is that fair?
Of course.
Okay. So for me, as a Christian woman who I was angry at the Christian church because there's so much hypocrisy and there's so much, I was angry and I didn't understand. Some of the stories in the Bible made absolutely zero sense to me. So it was very hard for me to justify this religion. And I was over religion. But I had evidence that there were people around the world that they believed in the same God that I believe in, and they were having a much different experience. And I was in pursuit of that. You have to be willing to separate yourself from religion and go into the relationship. But of course, every single faith practice has their dogma. Okay. So figure out what you believe. For me, I began studying the Bible, not like a straight A student. Listen, I would open up the Bible and fall asleep and be like, oh, and I always tell people, oh, you can't sleep? Go ahead and open up the Bible. Watch you fall asleep real fast, real fast. If you cannot sleep, open up the good book. And so I was committed to getting answers. And I was willing to embarrass myself. I was willing to offend people. I was willing to go back and forth with people and question, well, why do you believe that? Why should we speak in tongues? Why should we do this? Why should we do that? What about God is supposed to be a loving God? Jesus said, love everyone. Why do we condemn these people? Why do we condemn that? Right? So you got to really figure out for yourself and get your own revelation. If you're open to hearing from God, I'm going to use God as the term for all the creator of all things. Okay. I know that someone listening is like, not my God, whatever you want, insert, but I'm going to say God because that's who I worship. So you have to open yourself up to that relationship to be able to hear. And you have to make the intentional practice, the intentional effort. People want answers, but they don't want to do the study. They want answers, but they don't want to ask the question. They also don't want the questions asked of them. So you have to be willing to go on this archaeological dig and disrupt things in your life. That's the most uncomfortable thing I've had to do. And it's not always easy. And I do get frustrated. And I still to this day, I do get angry. And but the good, but once you start to know what your faith practice says about what, then you'll be able to hear super clearly. Can I give you an example?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So have you ever had moments where you just feel like you know you're supposed to do something, but you're wondering, am I the one? Is it me? Like, there's so many other people are already doing it. Like, is this even necessary? You wrote a book, right? Like, of all the millions and millions of books on the bookshelves, like, why would they pick up my book, even though I know it's really needed? But it's just like, I just don't know. Have you ever heard that? Or is it just me?
Of course. And I hear
Okay.
that obviously from my clients all the time too.
Okay. So we tend to call it imposter syndrome. I don't believe it's imposter syndrome because deep down you know that you're supposed to do it. And also deep down you know your stuff. It's just like this little nagging feeling. So for me, when I began studying the word of God, there's all these promises, right? Like I'm made in the image of God. I am not a God. I am not a demigod. I am not just like God, but I am made in the image. And if the image of God, if God is a creator, if God is wonderful and loving, and I'm made in that image, there must be some essence of love in me. There must be some essence of being a creative individual in me. Then I continue to read and study. Well, in my faith book, in the Bible, it says that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. It says that I was created for such a time as this. So I'm not late, I'm right on time. And so that is the beauty of sinking into your faith practice and and questioning. You know, for those of you that are Christians that are listening, there's no place in the Bible that says you can't question God. In fact, there's even evidence where God says, test me in this concerning your finances. So if you are in a financial drought and you're like, I got rid of the alcohol, I'm cleaning up my life, and I'm still broke and I still don't have this money and I don't know what to do, you watch your words, your tongue carries the power of life and death. That's also biblical. That is exactly what it says. You have the power of life and death in your tongue. And that means that you can speak life and create life, or you can speak death and create death. Then if I look again, you know, when again, and I don't apologize, but I do want to be sensitive to listeners of other faith. I can only give you examples from my experience, but I hope that these experiences and examples bless you as well, because it's available for you too. You know, if we look at how the world was formed according to my faith practice, in the beginning there was darkness, and then God said, let there be light. What did God do? God said, he spoke it. And so we have the power to speak things into existence. Now, you don't just speak it and then it happens. You got to go out there and do the thing. You know, faith without works is dead. But Carolina, to put a bow on all of this, the way that I'm able to move about the cabin freely in my faith is because I know what the word says about me. And when I am in doubt, I go to my friend Google and I Google, what does the Bible say about, and I will literally put in exactly whatever struggle I'm going through, because it doesn't always give you great answers, just for the record, right? Like you'll get the most, right? The other day I posted something, I'm like, that has nothing to do with my question. Do better, Google, you know, but it'll get you started. And the more you are in the practice of studying your faith, the more you'll know what it says about you, what it says for you, and you'll be able to start to hear the difference between what God has for you and what your mind is telling you. That's one of the things that people struggle with the most. Like, is it me or is it God? Is it a sign? That's one last thing. Stop waiting for signs, y'all. Stop waiting for signs and confirmations and burning bushes and like, listen, trust the gentle whisper, trust the soft nudge. If you're on the wrong path, you will be course corrected. It's just like have you ever been on a road trip and you miss the exit? What does the GPS do? It reroutes you. You'll get rerouted. You'll get right back on track. You'll get where you're going.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, you are just such a testament to like redefining your own personal both beliefs and relationship with something so much bigger than you, and using your faith as something so empowering in your daily life and daily work, and not just something you reserve for like one day of the week, but really believing all of this stuff as an empowerment tool too for the work that you're meant to do. I think that's just such a beautiful way of looking at it. And, my spirituality, I think, is deepened so much too in that sense of like really knowing like what I'm put on this earth to do, and just these empowering messages that we can start to really connect with of like what it all means, and all these bigger things that kind of just make it so much more worth it. So I love all these tips. You mentioned earlier, that you are also here to change generational history. And, for people who are going to pick up your book, I completely recommend it. Go get her book right now, you guys. We hear the story of how you lost your parents at a very young age, your biological parents, and were raised, with quite a bit of disadvantage, and you come from a Latina background on top of that, and just all of the things that are going on. And you are now literally like on Latin American TV shows. Your book has been translated into Spanish. Like, what does it mean for you to change the generational history of like not only your like
Mhm.
personal family, but also like you as a role model for so many other people who see themselves within you and your story?
Hmm. Okay. Being radically honest here, whenever people remind me that I am a role model for other Latinas and like this big, that makes me very uncomfortable. You didn't make me uncomfortable, to be clear. You didn't, but the idea of that, because it feels so much bigger than myself. And the first thing I want to do is I want to reject that. Like, no, not little old me, right? And so I mentioned that because I have to overcome that. So I work on overcoming that regularly. Like, yes, me. Yes, it's okay for me to shine. Yes, it's okay for me to be the example. Yes, it's okay for me to be the token Latina. Yes, it's okay. And I'm saying that because I believe that there's someone listening right now who feels like, no, not me, because, and you'll rattle off all the things that you've done in your past. If you read my book, I didn't hold back. You will know everything about me, all the kind of disgusting things of my past, and who I was. And I work really hard not to let who I was define who I am or who I'm becoming. So on a day to day, Carolina, I do not think about what I'm doing today is setting me up to be a role model for other women. The only time in the last 13 years that I have ever thought that and taken the weight of that responsibility on my shoulders was when we were launching the book. And I was sending out, oh gosh, I'm going to get emotional again. And I was sending out the little press kits to, all the influential powers that be. And I remember I was just not begging, but I was really like supplicating with them, like, please help me share this book because it's not about me. The way this book sells will then determine the price that publishers are going to be willing to pay for other Latina books. And they gave me over six figures for the book advance. But if I don't do well, then that might compromise the generations behind me. That might compromise the next woman, and not just a Latina woman, but a woman in general, but for sure a woman of color. And so I felt this pressure, like I've got to make this a Wall Street bestseller, a New York Times bestseller. Like I've got to out earn, I've got to do all these things to prove to everyone that Latinas are worth taking this risk on. And I'll be super frank with you. I was so disappointed because I did not get the support that I was. I'm sorry, my daughters are getting really loud. One second. Okay. So it's like they know I'm being interviewed and it's just like free for all over there. That being said, I was disappointed because so many people reached out and said, how can I support you? I'm there for you. So many people during Black Lives Matter were like, I care about DEI and uplifting women of color and people of color and da 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 da. Okay, that's cute or whatever that you made that little post that you put some little line at the bottom of your website. But then when it really came to, there was not much airtime the way that they give airtime for their friends, for their little clique. So that when that happened, I share this story not because I'm bitter, because I'm not. It is what it is. That was a great learning lesson for me, that it's not my responsibility to carry that weight. It's my responsibility to do the job to the best of my ability. And sometimes my best is going to fall short, but I'm not defined by my shortcomings. And I'm also not defined by my success. I'm defined by the way that I treat people and the legacy that I leave behind and the body of work. And I know that, this book transcends the test of time. Like everything that I write and that I wrote in this book, it's evergreen. And so whether someone is reading it now in 2023 or someone picks it up in 2095, and I pray to God it'll still be in print, just like we read Emily Dickens and all those other Shakespeare, it'll still be applicable then. And that's the best that I can do. It's the best that I can do.
Yeah. Well, that's really powerful to take that pressure off and that like weight of responsibility, but still find so much meaning. I love what you said in the way I treat people. And I think this book is really phenomenal in that way, that it's like, doesn't matter whether you're like more of a beginner into like personal development or more advanced, like it's really self-work that you're prescribing here. That's a little bit more nuanced and deeper than a lot of just like the personal transformation concepts, so it really does apply for so many people. And I had so many questions about the book, but I feel like readers just need to get the book and read the book, and they'll get all these beautiful processes on changing their limiting beliefs and forming their identities and their vision and how to form boundaries and all that kind of stuff. So I just have a few more questions. You share a really cool practice that you do through journaling. So I'm curious what your journaling framework looks like. I mean, not necessarily every day, but like in general, like how do you like to journal, and what tips do you have for the readers of like, because I think like just journal, it sounds like so vague and so hard, and we get so over perfectionist. Like what actually do we write down? So how do you tackle that?
Yeah. First, I do want to say thank you so much for acknowledging that my book goes deeper. Thank you for saying that. That was my goal. Like I was like, no fluff, no surface. I don't want to read a book and be like, oh my God, here we go again. Same old, same old. No, thank you. So I appreciate that. Okay, let's talk about journaling. I love journaling. And with my background in neuroscience, there's so many studies that show that journaling is healing. It can change so many things in the mind and the body and the spirit emotionally. So let's talk about it. Now, I actually teach journaling to manifest. And when I say the word manifest, I mean the actual definition, which means to make appear. Okay. So it's not the law of attraction where we like think, believe, receive, and it just all happens and let it be easy. No, there's actual work involved in this. But the way that I teach it, you will start to take more aligned action. So the work feels fulfilling. Even the hardest task will still feel hard, but there will be a satisfaction in doing the hard thing. Okay, so 3 simple steps. You ready? If you're a note taker, this is your moment to shine. Okay, so first step is write. You're going to write whatever comes to mind. So if you are someone who struggles to get started with journaling, just write anything. Many of my own journal entries have started with ugh or bleh. I don't know what to say. I'm so tired today. I'm this, I'm that. Whatever's coming to mind, I don't feel like doing this. This feels like a waste of my time. So whatever is true for you, write it down. And the reason that we do that is because our thoughts and ideas are like little children. They need attention or they will continue to bother you. If you've ever been around a little kid, mothers out there know, mommy, 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 mommy. And they're like, what? I love you. I love you too. And then they go away. And then, they might come back, which is why I say that this method that I'm teaching you, the faith activated journaling method, is cyclical. It's not linear, because sometimes you'll go to the first step, to the third step, to the second, to the first, and it's kind of a cycle. It's not right shift script every single time. But I teach it that way because it's easy to remember. So you're going to sort of vent, brain dump, let it out. And by the way, do not feel that your handwriting has to be perfect. Do not feel that you have to do it exactly the way that I'm saying it. This is just a framework, but you are free and encouraged to color outside the lines. Okay. Step 2, shift. You're going to shift into a state of gratitude and expectation. So let's think, what is something that you're manifesting right now? What's something that you want to manifest? Karolina.
Oh, well, we are going to launch we have a certification program as well to certify alcohol-free coaches in our
Yes,
world.
okay.
Yes. So we are launching 2 times next year. So that's like double the students, double the work, double everything. So we're manifesting that.
Okay. So let's say my writing would be like, I'm so excited. I'm a little nervous, like double the work, double the students. Oh my goodness. Am I going to get the support that I need? I hope I get the support. Where is the support? Right. So you'll just start writing down all the things. Then you're going to shift into a state of gratitude and expectation. So that part of your journaling might look like, I am so proud of myself for creating this program that I know is going to change so many lives. I'm really excited for the 500 new members. I don't know how many you want, but that sounds like a good round. Is that too many or not enough?
That's a lot.
Okay, well, over the next however many years, right? But
Of
I'm so
course.
excited, like my first new 100 of the year. I'm ready for them. I am calling them in. I am so excited and so ready to serve these incredible human beings. Okay. Now, why do we do this shift? We do the shift because we want to activate our body. The brain does not know the difference between the truth, a lie, or a memory. And so we want to feed that processor something to get excited about. So this is a top-down function is what we would call it in neuroscience. It's just a thought or an idea that we're going to implant of excitement. And once your body starts to get excited, you'll notice that even your physiology will shift. Maybe you're smiling, maybe you're sitting up a little taller because you're getting excited. And this is generating the energy that you need to take the action, right? I love that Brendan Burchard says, the power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy, right? So we're generating the energy and the intention, pardon me. And then the third step is to script. Now, this is something that if you practice any scripting or journaling, you may have heard before, but you're going to script your desires as if they have already happened in great detail with the actions you took. That's my little nuance to it, right? Great detail with the actions you took. So what does that look like? So I'm so we did the shift. Oh my goodness, we did it. We hit our goal, not just for the first launch, but for the second launch too. Oh, wow, we surpassed the goal. It is so amazing. We have just welcomed in 100, 200, 300, 500, 25, whatever the number is, right? I just see that for you, Karolina. I see that you create this incredible academy and that maybe 500 seems like a lot now, but there will be a day where you look back and say, wow, 500, what a drop in a bucket that was, because we've got them international. We've got them all over. 500 is not nearly enough coaches for the 8 billion people on the planet. So I just want to increase your vision a little bit for you. And we're not saying you have to do that right away, but we're going to believe bigger for you. Okay. So we'll say, well, we got the 50, we got the 100, whatever the number is. Wow. Amazing. I can hardly believe it. My heart is racing out of my chest when I saw the enrollments come in one after the other. I kept refreshing. I got on the phone with my team to see, was this real or was there a mistake with the thing? So you're going to write down all the details, right? And then you're going to take a moment and say, and it's so amazing that all we had to do was, and you start writing down the actions. Like all we had to do was set up a landing page. And I found a great copywriter. And then from there, my tech VA was fantastic. And if you don't have a tech VA, you could say, I found her when I did X, Y, and Z. Now, why do I throw this nuance in there? Because inevitably on the path to manifesting our desires, there's going to be a day where we have an expectation hangover, where we have a work hangover, where we have a disappointment hangover, where we have a failure hangover, things have hit the fan, life started lifing, and we wake up feeling aimless. Surely I can't be the only one that has woken up feeling like I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing today. I know I have a business. I know there's a lot to do, but I don't know what to do today. Well, you can go back into that script and look at what you wrote and just grab one of those action items and get to it.
Well, this is gold. I'm like voraciously writing as well, trying to keep eye contact at the same time because this is so good. And what I love about it so much is like when you first jump into that like faithful, empowered, inspiring writing, you feel sometimes like a fraud. Like you're like, I don't feel this way. Like I feel today, you know? So it's like you're giving space to those like more negative or just emotions, get them all out, and then clear the space for the gratitude, build it up, like you said, get the energy, and then shift into this beautiful, beautiful script. I love it so much. So, so good, you guys. And this is just like a little snapshot of what you can get in Permission to Offend. There's so many other scripts and tools and exercises. I wish we had another hour to go so I could go into them, but maybe next time, maybe another time. Rachel, where can people find you and where can they find your book? Obviously, I know it's in Amazon and the bookstores, but just for anyone who needs a little reminder.
Well, since you are already listening to a podcast, I would encourage you to go listen and subscribe to my podcast. It's called Permission to Offend, just like the book, which is available where all books are sold. Of course, my website is rachelluna.com. And if you are an Instagrammer, I would love for you to follow and connect with me over at Girl Confident.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. We'll include all the links below, and I appreciate you so much being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor.